Great, excellent. Okay, well, according to that, it's important to mention, okay, that the um okay, let me go. Okay. The North and the poles, okay, remember it's important to remember we have two poles, okay? The North Pole, also called the Arctic, and the South Pole, also called the Antarctica, okay? According to that, it's important because through the different and the classical approach in terms of continents and regions around the world, it's been very, very important the dynamics, the links, and the international relations between Europe, between North America, South America, Asia, Africa, all that's dynamic. Nowadays, the concept of globalization is not enough only that concept. We need a real global dimension. And because of that, the extension, the expansion to the concept of a real global world is so connected. According to that, it start to increase to become more important and even essential the concept of geopolitics or geostrategy around and surrounding the poles. Okay? According to that aspect, it's important to bear in mind that we are going to make a general, okay, a sort of a panoramic view over the topic because it's a long topic, a lot of elements. So we are going to cover different mechanics, okay? Important. If you have to bear in mind something at the beginning, it's important to remember that we've been covering some international elements like the mechanics and the institutional approach of the global governance in the scenario of the specialized systems of interagencies, the UN agencies. According to that, it's fundamental to remember that both poles are different in terms of territorial division, uses, purposes, and even their legal nature. They are not the same. Not okay, both very cold, very full of ice, not just like that. We have different situations, okay? The important thing that we need to take about, you need to think also, is that the geopolitical approach is not the same right now, and not only because the characteristics, also because the time. Probably what is the current situation nowadays in the North Pole is going to be the situation of the South Pole probably in 2 decades. Okay, so according to that, also the right now situation, which is the most important, the most immediate one, which is the North Pole situation, and geopolitics probably is going to be part of the expansion in medium term or middle term in terms of expansion in the south, in the Antarctica. The changing situation of the poles is according to different elements. We are going to cover first the Arctic, okay? Of course, it's becoming to be relevant, important, essential, a key strategic area considering many aspects around the world, like the dynamics in terms of gravitation. Remember, gravitation is that concept in international relation that is a country has enough influence, power in terms of economic, in terms of politics, in terms of capacity, even demography, okay, demographic aspects that is able to influence, to create another satellites, okay, another countries that they work as an allies, but also quite influence and condition according that mechanic and kind of relation. So it's very important how the alliances are influenced and conditioned according this mechanic of gravitation, and clearly a factor, a clear impact mechanic is the geopolitics of the poles, especially the Arctic. Okay, I'm making emphasis in the Arctic in the north because it's the nowadays one. Okay. In this way, it's important to bear in mind that the poles are becoming very, very important in terms of projection. Remember, when we analyze the case of international relations, we have different elements, okay? We are speaking about international economy, international businesses, trade routes, okay? The mechanic of transportation around the world and the sector of transport is completely changed and completely reconditioned and even redimensioned according this mechanic, especially the Arctic. Okay, foreign policy proposals. We can notice, for example, in the case of the European Union, in the case of the United Nations, the foreign policies are changing according the North. We are going to, if we have enough time, we are going to analyze the Greenland case. Okay, it's important to bear in mind that also impacts in the alliances and of course when we have tensions we need to consider of course some international events with high impact and tensions like the case of Ukraine and Russia, the case of some tensions, for example, in the West Europe from to the Central Europe in terms of policies inside of the European Union, also, of course, USA and European Union and other mechanics. So the diplomatic relations and the consular connections are also on the spotlight and quite condition impact according these mechanics. Okay, territorial tensions. These happen in both of the poles, in the north and in the south, but clearly the north has a very high resolution of those claims. Okay, and something that some important states or nations are against the concept or trying to compete, have some rivalry according to that mechanic, which is the multipolar reality. The scenario, the global scenario, is multipolar. According to that, the mechanic of trying to create poles, trying to create a specific competence is hard for some proposals. Some foreign policy is not accurate to the reality. It's more the bipolar situation, unilateral decisions is not going to be, actually, it's not working considering the reality and the last events. It's important to understand that if we are speaking about multipolar situation or concept to describe the characteristics and main features of this nowadays reality global scenario, it's important to also connect with the concept of globalization. The process of globalization is not only political, also is cultural, social, and of course, economical. It's an economic mechanic. So that dynamics of the global concept requires a more global idea, which is the Arctic and the Antarctica are not completely part of because of transport, because of technology, because of different elements, extreme weather, it's very hard to manage to control that areas. But nowadays, according some aspects and news, according to the reality of those areas, global warming and different elements, is changing the situation, and clearly they could be part of the global dimension. So the expansion is indeed is part of the mechanic of the globalization. So, and therefore the poles present an strategical and strategic potential in terms of expansion. I'm speaking about economy, trade, but also politics, and of course, tension, which is war and military concepts. Okay, the control of the poles right now is like the key of the kingdom. It's like a projection that, in terms of resources, in terms of capacity, in terms of influence, is essential. Okay?
I don't know if I may interject something very quickly that
Yes.
Fernandez. I don't know if you realize that your slides are not moving. We are
No, because
still.
I'm in the introduction.
Ah, okay. All right. I
Yes,
apologize.
don't
Okay.
worry. No, no,
Thank
no.
you.
Thank you. No, no. I'm just introducing the topic. It's a long topic. Okay, very important to bear in mind. Okay, let's go to focus in the most important one or the most, let's say, current one, because this is happening exactly right now, which is the North Pole situation. Okay, Located, of course, as you know, in the northernmost part of the world, okay, at very, very top. It's important to consider that it's in the center of the Arctic Ocean, okay, and it has no landmass. This is very important. It's the big difference with the south. The center, okay, the Arctic is water mainly, okay. According to that, the huge water, okay, so no land, clearly needs to be regulated, need to be controlled or dispositioned in terms of international public law by the international sea law, the maritime law, okay? Because we don't have land, we have mainly water. And of course, that water is under a specific situation because before was ice, but nowadays, clearly, the situation is presenting another scenario essential for the routes of the trade routes, okay? Which is the situation. The point of no land means no territorial division, but we have the sea lines and the sea convention, okay? It's important to bear in mind that the sovereignty is not over the land if it's according to the extension of the water, the sea of each of the coastal countries. Okay, it's divided according to that, and of course, we have some parts that is not divided because they don't arrive. So exists a sort of race, a sort of competition to try to claim some areas, and of course, the Arctic in general. Okay, it's important that those countries that have a border, they are coastal countries over the Arctic Ocean, they try to extend the exclusive economic zone, okay, over the North Pole, according to different methods and different elements that need to be recognized by the United Nations and other countries. Okay, it's important to consider that we have different and many territorial claims. One that we need to specify is the Lomonosov Ridge. Okay, this is an underwater mountain. Okay, a mountain range that extends to the North Pole. This way, if we have the possibility to the continental platform be recognized over that one, the country that is able to find a way to recognize that claim, territorial claim, is able to probably control many or a lot of the most of the North Pole. Okay, that is mainly claimed, of course, by Russia. Also, we have some other claims, like Canada, which also claims sovereignty over the Northwest Passage, okay, according the north area of Canada. And we have claims from Denmark, of course, connected with Greenland. Later, we will check the case of Greenland. And also, we have the case of Norway. Norway has a situation with the fjords, which is the Svalbard region, okay? And United States want to claim some jurisdiction from Alaska, okay? The region of Alaska has some connection, and the United States also is a coastal country over the Arctic. Not that much extension, but is another claim. It's important that the situation of the Arctic is regulated, okay, and the disposition according to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. Okay, remember, this is sea because it's water, okay? And of course, it's connected to the concept of exclusive economic zones, that area, that part of the sea that the countries has the possibility to use, okay, and to get the resources like fishing, etc., and many other resources under the water, okay? So also implies the possibility of extending that zone. This exists already happening in other areas of the world. And according to that, being able to extend, that is in the Article 76 of the Convention, to extend beyond the 200 nautical miles. Okay, this is important, the mechanic of extension, because it's mainly the basis of the claims. Okay, it's not just land. Okay, And according to that, the United Nations Commissions receive a lot of claims, but especially from Russia, Denmark, and Canada, but no final resolution until today. So this is clearly a tension point, okay? A division aspect between these coastal members, and started to create what is the concept of alliances depending the flank, depending the party. One more from the case of Russia and China declare a non-coastal member, but a lot of interest in the Arctic, and a more western region, which is USA, Canada, Denmark, and some of the northern Scandinavian countries like Norway. Okay? And according to that, the no resolution over the sovereignty clearly implies tensions. Also, the situation of the USA that they didn't ratify the convention, which implies no recognition of the convention and more tension between not using the same disposition or the same concepts, like we are speaking a different language, okay, in terms of diplomatic concept, okay? This implies a scenario of tension, of a lot of interest, and of course, this guides us to the geopolitics, okay? According to that, the geopolitics of the Arctic is clearly a strategic area. Remember, inside of geopolitics, we have different elements: geoeconomy, geostrategy, different elements according the capacity to project gravitation, power, etc. And according to that, it's important to consider that the geopolitics of the Arctic is a condition or is based on three factors, okay? The melting, the thawing of the ice caps, okay? That huge ice mass is becoming water. So according to that, we have more water to consider and less ice. Okay, of course, this is connected with the climate change. Okay, and open some maritime routes, some trade routes. That, of course, is quite connected with the mechanics of new access. For example, China already studied the situation of arriving Europe from China using the north, the Arctic Sea. The ships take around 15 days. And through Hormuz or through Suez, the other, through going up and connecting under the Gulf, requires to arrive the Mediterranean air zone around more than a month, so around 30 to 45 days. Clearly, this reduced three times the time. This changed the cost, changed everything. It could be completely set again some of the mechanic and of course the presence of China in the in Europe, okay, and in the European Union. When I see the presence, it's of course the products. I'm also including India. So it's a lot of elements that recondition the trade in a lot of elements. Okay. And of course, vice versa. To be able to, Europe to be able to, in less complex situation and shorten terms and also cost, to be present in the Pacific. Okay, so depending that elements is a new scenario. This is connected with another strategic element, which is the resources. Nowadays, it's estimated that around 13% of the oil of the world, which is undiscovered oil, is in the Arctic. And also, 30% of the undiscovered natural gas is estimated that is in the Arctic. So clearly the resources, especially according to the energy crisis, is very, very important. So it's not just strategical in terms of location, it's strategical because the resources that has. And also the location in terms of connection, okay? Rich areas, lots of resources, essential for reset the trade, the commerce, the economy development clearly is the is the big gold mine in figurative metaphoric concept. Okay, so this connection of Europe, Asia, the Pacific, and also the North Atlantic is so strategical. And according to that, the intentions, the strategy is very, very important. And also the interest over the Arctic is in such tension. Okay? Where we see the Arctic in one point is no longer the periphery. It's not anymore another region, an external region. No, it becomes to be the spotlight in terms of geopolitics. And we notice, because of that, the case of the Greenland and USA, for example. Okay? In terms of short term and medium term projections, the Arctic is become essential, a key point we cannot avoid. Okay, the projection, especially European Union, North America, and Asia, no doubt that the Arctic is essential, is the key point in terms of location and development and control of resources. According to that, we have different proposals, different concept over the Arctic. Not all of them want to use it the same way or have the same foreign policy over the Arctic. Okay, for example, considering some on the main coastal countries, Russia, for example, has a mechanic which is called the Arctic Doctrine, which is a policy based on construction of military bases, okay, creating defenses, okay, and control over the Northern Sea route, okay, use icebreakers, lots of ambition for controlling the transport lines and the routes and resource extraction. Okay, the development of this Arctic doctrine clearly is a huge interest, vital interest of Russia over the Arctic. In the case of United States, is bifrontal, has two phases, two perspectives. One is not letting control over other competitors, but also is a control to avoid the no participation. USA has no that much connection to the Arctic. So Alaska is strategical, but also in this case, expansion to Greenland. Okay, so they are trying to support some extraction projects. They are has alliances with Canada or with Norway, also through the NATO. In the case of China, China is a very special case because China has non-coastal power, non-coastal presence, but is there, is self-declared, okay, a near Arctic state. Okay, actually they has no coast, but they are intervening, being part with projects in Greenland, with projects financing Russian projects, okay, in Siberia. Also, they reconnect. Remember when we speak some classes before about the belt and the root, which is a big dimension of the mechanic, a big policy of the Chinese government over the connection of the world. One of them is the Polar Silk Road, which is the northern road. Okay, that's define many aspects, also projects and using finance over Iceland, Greenland, which is many interest, especially in trade and of course in resources. Okay, Denmark, of course, presents a lot of tension. Their connection to the Arctic is only through Greenland. And the situation of Greenland, with also exists some independence, speeches and agenda, but also has some autonomy and independence presence with a governor, but now with the tension of a foreign country, indicating tension and even intention to annex and take control over Greenland, presents a lot of tension. Essentially, that they already have some military bases and military institutions according to NATO. is already recognized as a strategical region. Okay, and of course we have Norway. The case of Norway reinforces the military cooperation because Norway is very worried about global warming, and at the same time, they express their foreign policy according to NATO's Arctic. Okay, they use base, they have a lot of surveillance in the flank of Europe, which is the northern west flank. Okay, so we have a tension. This is like a chess scenario, very complicated not right now, and very hard to imagine a easy and peaceful resolution, which is clearly a bad situation, especially in terms of the tendencies nowadays over escalation, okay, how this is escalating and increasing the tensions. We notice in the Middle East, we notice that in the north of Africa, we notice that in the tensions in diplomatic relationships, and of course, in the case, for example, of the Ukraine and Russia conflict. So the alliances are, of course, over the coastal. We clearly notice more Western alliance and Eastern alliance, which is Russia and China in one side, more the Eastern, and the Western is more the concept of the Arctic Council. The Arctic Council is global, all the coastal, or all of them, the coastal countries. But we have a situation, which is because all of other international events, we have a conflict between, which is the Arctic Council. It should be like the common forum, common place to solve, to find resolutions, to have a common use of the Arctic. But which is Canada, Russia, United States, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland and Iceland. But according to the situation of Ukraine and Russia in 2022, clearly this is completely frozen, paralyzed, paused. Okay, is not working, is not in function. The attention, they are unable to interact and to manage this. And clearly, the lack of common places, common forums, always implies less cooperation, less coordination, and more possibilities of tension and conflicts. In the case of Norway, Canada, and the USA, we notice which they are straightened the NATO presence. Okay, we need to remember that the NATO has a military perspective, and according to that, they are incorporating new members like Finland and Sweden. This way, they make a strength and they put more importance over the northern flank of the alliance. For example, using some military mechanics like the trident juncture or the call response. They also declaring, okay, and recognizing consecrated the concept of the Arctic as a priority defense zone. Okay, this shows clearly the interest and also the involvement to be able to defend that interest, which is another kind of speech and response. Also, at the other side, the accelerating melting with a permanent open of the roots is not like in other areas with like Kamchatka or the Bering that started to melt and later froze again. That's not happening anymore. Okay, some regions are permanently thawed. So the increased demand of resources, the multipolarity situation, the ineffective common spaces, okay, the lack of cooperation, communication, or coordination clearly give us a picture, depicts a picture which is tension and conflict, especially according to the um, pretension of and the interest of controlling. Okay, they want to control the Arctic, which is very, very complicated because many elements, especially the environmental crisis and the different and increasing military presence. This shows a scenario quite militarized and quite tension over a very important area of the world. Okay? About the South Pole, as I say, we are not in the same situation. Okay, I say we because quite close the South Poles to me, but it's important to bear in mind that is not about just different elements, which is important, different aspects, but also because time. Nowadays, it's not the moment of the South, but it could be in 2 decades, 3 decades. Okay? So it could be the future, what is going and what's actually happening at the North. It could be the South. And actually, the South has another element. Okay? It's important that the South, a difference in contrast of the North, has a treaty, has an agreement. Okay? And because of that, it's important that the treaty, the pact, and the agreement of the South was in 1959 has time and as according to different claims and different elements of the coastal and non-coastal members. Okay? Because the South is different, it's not only ice, it's a huge landmass. Okay, so we have a lot of land. It's a full continent. So the Antarctica has a huge expanse land, and because of that, exists territorial claims and requires, of course, according to that, territorial division. So we have in historical claims, we have coastal claims. For example, Argentina, Chile claims that they are so close and they have, of course, projection over the land. We also have some historical claims. For example, the United States, because historically they have presence, they intervene, they part of some of the Antarctica expeditions. So those situation was hard to solve or to manage, and it's emerged the concept of the treaty. The treaty create, let's call that way, create a new scenario, especially very different considering the North. This lack of sovereignty, in this case, was managed in another way. Okay? In the context of the Cold War and also the movement of stop militarization of the regions around the world establishes three aspects. All the claims that were prior, like Argentina, Chile, UK, USA, all those were suspended. Not denied, has no resolution, but they are suspended, they are imposed during the valid of this treaty. Meanwhile, this treaty is valid, no claim will be claimed. Okay? And according to that, declare the Antarctica as a common territory, a common land of all the treaty members. It's not the Antarctica heritage of the world. This is important to bear in mind. It's heritage of the members of the treaty. Okay? And also stipulates, consecrates, and dispose the concept that is only going to be used, the Antarctica, exclusively for peaceful and scientific purposes. Okay? So researching, no military uses, this is gonna be essential in the case of the use of Antarctica. The founding countries are Argentina, Australia, Belgium, Chile, France, Japan, New Zealand, Norway, United Kingdom, South Africa, Russia, and the United States. In these founding founders, we have some coastal members and also historical members. Okay, like the case I mentioned before. The prohibition of military activities is essential, it's a peaceful area. Also, the promotion of scientific cooperation, the prohibition of nuclear exposition, or also the storage of radioactive waste. Not gonna be used, it's not a garbage area, not for waste. Okay, and also it's important that nowadays some elements of the geopolitics of the South is a sort of experiment in terms of climate, in terms of many elements that could be applied to the whole world. Okay, so they have the members, they have common institutions like the Secretariat of the treaty to have a Also, nowadays they have associates like Uruguay, like other countries. They also be members and they have both are part of the making decision scenario and clearly shows more cooperation, communication, coordination. Okay, so this is a good way when we ask sometimes what we can do with the North, how we deal with this situation. The South is a good situation, it's a good example of how to deal. Is perfect? No, but it's a good measure at the least at the beginning to try to avoid that tension, that possible war or armed conflict in the north. According to that, the geopolitics of the Antarctica is based, of course, it's very important the size. The privileged location is connecting the Atlantic with the South Pacific. The connection through the South is one of the most dangerous waters or sea and oceans of the world. The Valdez Peninsula, the Istmo de Magallanes, completely hard, very, very important to avoid because of that, the Panama Canal. Okay, so the possibility of expanding the routes through the Antarctica changed completely, redimensioned the whole world in terms of connection, trade, maritime routes, etc. Okay, also has a lot of resources. Some of them is estimated, okay? Probably undiscovered yet, but the scientific estimation that they are there, especially, for example, minerals, fresh water, okay? And a huge biodiversity, very, very important for the rest of the world. Scientific value, global climate, astronomical observation, geology, and it's very important the role in terms of cooperation and essentially in terms of environmental balance of the planet. Okay, so this tension, this mechanic clearly is so, so important. Okay, the tension, the geopolitics, we also have tensions, of course. Okay, it's important to bear in mind that we have suspended territorial claims, and that's is okay for some members of the treaty, but not for all of them. Argentina, for example, is still claiming their control and sovereignty over the Antarctica. This is a tension point, but not that much like in the north. Okay, the south is more cold situation or not that more distended, more relaxed situation compared in the north. Okay, the
Ladies and gentlemen, we just noticed an issue with our presenter, probably due to network congestion, and our technicians are apparently working diligently to resolve that issue. But everything eventually will be solved very, very, very soon. It is very unfortunate that this happened, as we were all, I believe, enjoying this very, very profound presentation in the arena of geopolitics, very specifically the politics of the poles, the extent that those politics are impacting heavily our lives. It is very, very, very sad. The presentation consisted of a very quite comprehensive description of those geopolitical landscape of the poles, both the north and the south. Very, very sad indeed that we have lost Professor Gonzalo U. Fernandez, but we are keeping our finger crossed. There he is. He is coming back. Thank God. We were very, very, very concerned about the situation that was about to unfold. but we are quite happy that Dr. Gonzalez Fernandez, I'm so sorry, Dr. Dr. Gonzalo Fernandez is back.
I'm back.
We
Okay,
only
my
have 15
apologies.
minutes to go, but we're gonna manage our best
Excellent.
to get an excellent use of that time. Go ahead, Doctor.
So sorry, my apologies, but
That's okay.
technology is above us. The internet blinks, is a little bit
Yes,
unstable.
yes.
But I'm back, I'm back. Okay. As I was mentioning about ending the concept of geopolitics of Antarctica, okay, let me share. Mm. Okay, something important, of course, is the tension. Okay, this situation, this rivalry and competition is not the same as in the north. This is important to bear in mind. Okay, the situation is not exactly the same, but of course present some elements in terms of connection. Nowadays, even the case of the South is even some hope because coordination, the use in a peaceful way, in the good of the humanity. Okay, some more data collection, satellite use, global communication, environmental monitoring, logistical projection, and many other elements are working. They are perfect? No, but they are working. This is very, very important in terms of thinking how could manage the pole situation. Okay, so the south is very different. Of course, exists some interest over mining, which is prohibited right now, and also over fishing. Lots of water, okay? So that's very, very important. Yes, it's important to understand that if it's I'm speaking about poles or the geopolitics of the pole, doesn't mean both of the polar geopolitics are the same. No, different situation. I prefer to say different moments. The North is today, the South is in some decades, but doesn't mean that it's not going to be our future. Okay, and according to the North, of course, we have a recent situation, actually not already solved tension and event, which is the Greenland case. Probably you already hear that the Greenland was kind of claim or part of the discourse and the Donald Trump administration policy, foreign policy, according the possibility to incorporate, to buy, to purchase, or even other concepts over the US to get Greenland. Okay, this region over here, of course, is part of Denmark, has Denmark's sovereignty, but also is unautonomous, implies some independence in terms of administration.
Wow, is that happening again? This is the trend, brothers and sisters, when we deal with modern technology. We do call that modern, but to a large extent, that technology is causing some terrible issues, setbacks that we deal with from time to time. But here it is. Just a short while ago, we lost Dr. Gonzalo Fernandez, and right at this time, it is happening again. Please do not blame Atlantic International University. This is happening far, far away. We're talking about thousands of miles away from where we are. Our institution is primarily based in Honolulu, the state of Hawaii, but I myself and some other key staff of the institution, we are established in the state of Florida. Personally, I am in the city of North Miami Beach, And as you can realize, there is no issue. Never has it been an issue with the technology, my network system where I am. But there comes Dr. Gonzalez Fernandez. I'm so sorry. Dr. Gonzalo Fernandez again. We are privileged and blessed that we are getting him back. The topic he was speaking about the situation with the Greenland area, which our president is trying to acquire. Go ahead, Dr. Fernandez. The floor
Okay,
is back to
technology.
you.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
as I was saying, it's important to understand the Greenland is not just the situation of buying the territory of the region of another country. That's already happened many times during the history. It's the division. Because Denmark has no interest to buy, to sell it. Greenlanders has no interest to be annexed or even invaded by the USA. And the literal alliances, remember, is important. The allies of the Denmark are the the EU, the European Union. They are supporting Denmark. This implies a very frontal and very hard and deep division for the case of which is called the northern west flank in the NATO. Okay, the NATO organization has a historical situation, which is a division between allies, not just a division, a tension. Okay, because
By
Denmark
the
is
way, we have
not.
just less than 10 minutes to go. Uh-oh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Excellent. No, it's just the concept, thank you. It's just the concept of Greenland is an example. Maybe it's solved, we don't know, but it exemplified excellently, okay? It's a very good example of how is the tension of this geopolitics of the North. Okay, so the situation, where we should need analyzing, what we need to think about the new international relation is going to develop, we need to see the Arctic. Okay, this is very, very important and clearly shows the division. Okay, just to share because this is a huge topic. Okay, this is just a general approach. Remember, I always include some recommended bibliography, okay, to expand anyone that has an interest. And of course, thank you a lot for your attention. If you have comments, doubts, anything, please let me know.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gonzalo Yo Fernandez, for a top-notch presentation. That's the way I would call it. I have attended presentation from many US universities, and yours stands out completely of those that I have attended. I'm not going to
Thank
make
you.
additional comments, brothers and
Please.
sisters, so that we can afford you the opportunity to raise issues and ask questions. Uh, I don't want to cheat you out of that opportunity. So remember the topic, geopolitics of the poles, the influence of geographical factors on international relations. Very exactly the way our impressive, great, so to speak, presenter, Dr. Gonzalo U. Fernandez, has done it. I was waiting for a hand up, and we do have one. Let me stop my comments and allow our first attendee, Ugo Chukwu Patricia, to ask a question. Go ahead, Patricia.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, educator. I
You're
really
welcome.
enjoyed class. So I want you to explain more on the challenges of the North. There is the O1 Alliance Arctic and all the challenges of the North. I wasn't able to grab it much.
All right. Thank you very much, Patricia. Dr. Fernandez.
Yes. The situation of the North in terms of challenges, clearly we can summarize them in three. The first situation is the change of the context, which is big ice, and nowadays we have ships be able to cross it, we are able to use it, and we have, of course, inventions and technology that let us to use, to expand over the north, over the Arctic. So the thawing or the ice melting is a key aspect. Okay, so one side we can say the global warming is a damage, is very hard, but at the same time is expanding the north in terms of using it by the countries. Okay, the second point is the resources. Okay, which is called the special and the rare minerals, metals,
Mhm.
precious resources, strategical resources are quite concentrated in the Arctic, even 13% of undiscovered oil and 30% of the natural gas is in the north, in the Arctic, the undiscovered one, which represents a huge amount. And of course, in the energy crisis implies a very good position. Who's gonna be the owner of those resources?
Mhm.
Clearly, will have a very strategical control. Okay, so that mechanic and the claim, the rivalry over controlling that area in a legal way, we can say, which is through the maritime law, the sea law, implies the context. So that geopolitics, that challenge is division, tension, the common institutional or the common institution like the UN is not taking resolutions over it. So
Mhm.
right now is who's gonna be the stronger and who's gonna be the first one to take a step over controlling it. It's a hard situation. It's a
Yes,
challenge.
yes, yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Chang Puat Puak. The next question. Go ahead, Chang Puak.
Okay, thank you very much. The presentation has been wow. I have two questions. Number one, how do politics intersect with the global energy transition? I repeat, how do geopolitics intersect with the global energy transition? That's the first question. Uh, the other question is, could the poles become bargaining chips in broader geographical conflict? Could the poles become bargaining chips in broader geopolitical conflict? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Puak. Dr.
Well, very accurate and very good questions indeed, especially the first one, because if we find, I say we as a world, if these countries, any of these countries control completely these resources, of course, the transition in terms of energy, renewable energy, is not going to be expanded. On the contrary, we are going to continue making pollution and using oil, natural gas, etc. Maybe we continue with some other elements of the transition in the production, but clearly the competition over the classical fossil and oil and carbon and charcoal and gas is gonna to continue. Okay, so in terms of energy transition, is a sort of unfair competition because the one that controls these resources is not going to help in terms of renewable energies, for example. Okay, and about the second question, I'm not sure if it's about the to broader. Doctor, can you help me a bit? To
Yes,
broader of the.
what Puak was saying is whether the polls can be used as some kind of bargaining chip, whether they have something they say, okay, it's either you do this or you're gonna lose that. So that's the point. Using
Yes,
the polls
actually,
as
it's
bargaining
quite
chip.
indeed, absolutely. So the tension and the conflict is right there. It's not. I've been covering this topic for many years ago,
Hmm.
and sometimes we say, no, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, but we never know exactly when. But if you ask me right now, according the events that's happening, is now, is happening right now. Even is maybe we can even explain some other conflicts we have nowadays according the geopolitics of the North. Okay, the situation of Hormuz, as we need to remember the Iran and USA situation and Israel situation is controlling one of the main routes in terms of trade and maritime control. So if it's that route is under a war, a conflict, as in not good to trade, we need another ones.
Hmm.
Demanding also could be a campaign of using the North. Okay, there's many mechanics in geopolitics and in terms of speech that is indicating the North, and the North everywhere. So the North Pole, of course. Yes, it's broadened more the conflicts because the lack of communication. Again, the situation of Ukraine and Russia is the lack of communication, the tension situation between the West and the East. Okay, so Russia, USA, the new tension between USA and the European Union and Denmark specifically is not helping to have communication, cooperation to solve these possible disputes and conflicts according to more peaceful and safety to the world concept. So it's not according to the international public law, it's against that mechanic, which is more
Yes,
military concept.
true. Thank you very much. Question real quick on the chat box from Abdul Amin Kamara, which you have addressed actually through the first question raised by Chankuat Puak. But let me read the question anyway.
Okay.
Why are the two poles becoming increasingly essential factors in shaping international relations?
Well, as I mentioned, the ice melting, we have, of course, new ships. This is not the ships of 2 centuries ago. No, we
Hmm.
have, which
Hmm.
is icebreakers. The concept
Yeah,
of icebreakers, being able to use the North to have another technology, another communication, satellites to control the area, implies a new scenario in terms of using the North Pole and the Arctic Ocean. And because of that, this redefine and redimension the whole scenario in terms of trade, maritime, connection through cities. It's not the same. Imagine 15 days through Anvers in Belgium to Beijing or to Shanghai or to Hong Kong. Okay, very, very fast considering nowadays, which is 3 times. Um, that is very important. And of course, implies a new situation in terms of trade, in terms of agreements, in terms of treaties, in terms of international relations.
correct. Thank you very much.
My
I
pleasure.
don't see any more hands up. As a matter of fact, we have run out of time, but there is something that just caught my attention, Professor Fernandez,
Yes.
when you mentioned the lack of communication being the main issue in most of the challenges we are dealing with. I
Yes.
am of the same idea. However, if we try to maybe zero in on the Ukraine conflict, what do you think? I have seen that there have been a lot of conferences, a lot of meetings between the president of Ukraine, the US president, and some of the European counterparts. And there have been a lot of meetings, meaning that they have attempted to establish some kind of line of communication, but nothing seems to work. Can we think of another factor, Dr. Fernandez?
No, it's one of the factors, it's not the only one, but
Ah,
we need to
okay.
think two different elements. One is communication in bilateral situation in a public way is not the same as diplomatic relations,
Yeah.
okay, which is different factors of communication. And Ukraine and Russia is under using Bellon law because we have an
mhm.
armed conflict, which is another set of law and another situation in terms of international relations. So they cannot completely connect, they need a third parties to interact. It's completely different, the mechanic.
Mhm.
Whereas in the north, we have actually the Arctic Council. For example, imagine just an act. Russia take the resolution to move their ships over 100 extra nautic miles. And Norway consider that as a war act. Maybe they
Mhm.
were just looking for a submarine or doing a movement or something like that. The lack of communication between Norway to Russia could imply an escalation very easily
Mhm.
because Norway decided to expand their route, expand their sea. So that situation with a lack of communication, a common scenario, permanent representation, okay, and daily communication of the diplomats implies, of course, bad interpretation, misinterpretation, and of course, more tension. Is the only way? No, because we have communication, let's call it that way, in the
Yes.
United Nations, in the General Assembly, which doesn't mean we have no war or no situation. Of course,
Yes.
but we need to consider the lack of cooperation implies unilateral decisions. Okay, this
Yes.
is one complicated scenario in terms of
Uh-huh.
factors. But of
Uh-huh.
course, the interest, the division, the situation of the BRICS, and at the same time, the situation of breaking the Western Union or the Western flank in terms of the Donald Trump administration to the European Union, division inside European Union. We have politics, economic situation, energy crisis, many factors. This is a multifactorial situation,
Mhm.
of course.
Definitely, that's a true lack of cooperation until people understand, what is truly at stake. They
And
are not
impacts the whole
gonna
world.
cooperate
Of course, we
adequately,
are
and
focusing on some countries, but it's the
the
whole world.
situation will continue. Let's hope that
Excellent.
no true war is triggered throughout the entire world. God forbid. Let's keep our prayers for humanity, for mankind.
Absolutely.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want
Thank
to
you.
thank profoundly each and every one of you for attending our presentation today. Personally, I really love this type of classes because our presenter, Dr. Gonzalo Fernandez, in this case, has showed a complete mastery of the topic. Not only has he presented the uh, the text in a very, very pragmatic way, but whatever questions we throw at him, he has answered adequately with a comprehensive landscape of what happens in the North and the South Poles and all the factors that are intertwined to make the world in that kind of situation. It is very, very important, critical, I would say, to have a presenter of your class, Dr. Fernandez.
Thank
And
you.
this is on behalf of Atlantic International University that I want to thank you very, very much. Before we invite our attendees, whom I want to say a big thank you as well, before we invite them to talk to you and thank you collectively for that presentation, I would like to take this opportunity to get back to you, Dr. Fernandez, for your conclusion, please.
Thank you.
If you want to draw a conclusion for the audience, Dr. Fernandez.
Well, basically, this is a current topic, which means you are
Yes,
more than welcome to think about it, to
yeah,
make proposals, to study the topic. This is today. This is something we need to solve. We need to think about it. All of you, please think about it, how we can solve, why this is not working. The South as an example, the North to change the mechanics, how we can think in a most peaceful or at least avoiding tension and war situation in the North, because it impacts every of us. So all of us are called for this to cover this scenario. So please, assessment and analysis and professional systematic approach over this topic. Okay, more than welcome all of you to think about it and maybe to make a proposal, of course.
Very, very beautifully said. Thank you very much. Bottom line, brothers and sisters, the key word is get involved. No matter to whatever extent, participate. Like Dr. Fernandez said it, ask questions, participate in seminars, and send out proposals, and so forth and so on. Get involved. It is something that pertains to each and every one of us. If we do our part, we will eventually resolve those issues. Your time now, brothers and sisters. Thank you very much. Your time, I was saying, to talk to the presenter.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
I think that was
Thank you.
most.
Bye.
Thank you for your attendance and your participation.
So nice to see
Thank you.
someone
God bless.
who is passionate about
That's
the
a
topic.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Be blessed. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
And wait.